somebody wants to interview me, they can, but being on camera is not my most favorite thing. That's why I have a behind-the-scenes job.
Okay, gotcha. So where are you originally from?
I'm from the Chicago area. I went to school at the University of Iowa.
Okay.
I was on the concert committee there, and then moved back to Chicago and lived there since.
Cool. So you studied accounting in their business school, or?
I was a finance major,
And
for 2 years I was on the finance committee for the concert committee.
Okay. So what drew you to that major initially?
I'm good with numbers. They make sense. There's always a right answer, and you know if the answer's right or not. It's not open-ended. So I tend to like things that are logical and clear cut, and so math made sense.
Cool. So you just identified that was kind of like where you were going to be strong. And like that. And then how did you like initially get into music and find out that was like where you wanted to connect into like accounting and finance?
Music had always been a big part of my life. I always really enjoyed music, listening to it and playing it when I was younger. And it was a very fun part of life. It was very enjoyable. It felt like, comfortable to listen to music. It makes you feel better if you're in a bad mood. And so when I was looking for an extracurricular activity to kind of round out my college life, there was an ad in the paper for the concert committee. And so it just seemed like something that would be a good fit, both with my skill set and being good at math, but then also being interested in music.
Okay, cool. So that's kind of what connected them.
Yeah.
And what was the concert committee like at your school? Like what kind of stuff did you do?
It ran like a real concert promoter. So we were responsible for turning a profit and making offers on shows and having shows that you would have out in the real world. Some schools just get a pile of money to put on a concert, and we had more responsibility to financially be sound. So we would book the show, we would figure out what the ticket price is supposed to be, we would do all the work leading up to it. And then on the day of the show, we would work the show all day. We were actually a lot of times the stagehands or the runners. And then doing the finance, I would also settle the show, which is kind of funny that that's what I still do.
Yeah.
So that's basically collecting all of the bills, verifying how many tickets are sold, and then paying the artists what they're due.
Right. Cool. So that was basically, would you say that was like your first experience, or like the first step to kind of like being where you are in the position you are now? Like that was like your first learning experience of actually like
definitely
getting a venue to like almost practice on, sort of?
Yes, it was direct real world experience on how to put on a concert and then financially settle a concert.
In that program, did you have like a mentor or professor who was kind of like guiding you at first, or was it kind of like they just threw it at you and you had to figure it out?
Well, there's a little bit of figuring it out, but there was the advisor for our organization he was fantastic. His name was Kellogg, and he really took the time to teach us how the different deals were structured and how the business worked, and was really a mentor throughout the couple of years that I was on the committee. Taught me a lot about the industry, and ended up helping me get my first job in the industry outside of college. So
that's awesome. So since then, since you graduated, have all of your jobs been within like concert promoting and doing the accounting at shows, or have you ever worked at like a company doing accounting, like just a business?
When I graduated, I knew that it was going to be challenging to get a job in the music industry, and it probably wouldn't pay that well. And so I told myself I should at least try to get a typical finance major job, which ended up happening. And I worked in commercial lending for a bank for 6 months before I said, this is not the world for me. I need to go back to rock and roll. I'm not interested in wearing a suit every day and selling money to companies that, the end product was so far away from me. Working on concerts, it's nice when you see the results of your work. Even though I'm not on stage playing, it's nice when there's so many people having a good time, out in the crowd, knowing that I had a little bit to do with that is very satisfying for me. And working at the bank, you're so unconnected to the end result of what you do. It just there was none of that internal satisfaction on like I'm making people happy by doing
So
my job. So I quickly realized that I had a 10-year plan of I'll work at the bank and then get my MBA and then I'll get back into concerts. And about 6 months later, I said screw this. And so I called up Kellogg, our advisor, and asked him, what can I do? I want to go on the road. I'll do whatever. I'll start at the bottom, just get my foot in the door, anything. And so he suggested that I contact someone at Jam Productions in Chicago, which is where I was living at the time, just to kind of get some information and start networking. It turned out they had an opening in their accounting office, which was not exactly what I was looking for, but it was the foot in the door that I was looking for. So I ended up taking that job, and I worked at Jam in the accounting office for about 5 years, and then I worked my way up to becoming a talent buyer. So I was a talent buyer for theaters and arenas and stadiums. And that is what ended up kind of leading me more into the work tour. But being the things that I really focused on when I was a talent buyer, we did tours of minor league baseball parks with Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson, and then we did Counting Crows and Def Leppard. And that was my first experience living on a tour bus and being on the whole tour. The rest of my job was much more one-off concerts, or we'd have 5 or 6 dates with a band where I would fly or drive to the show to cover the show. But I really found that I liked being on tour. I liked being focused on a whole tour and being on site every day, and I like that my work-life balance is a little bit different right now, but I work when I'm on the road and I don't work when I'm home, which is a nice balance for me.
So when you kind of like got out of school and you said like you wanted to tour, but was there like a certain experience that sort of like turned you on to that idea of touring? Like how did you?
Well,
why were you attracted to
I think that having worked on the promoter side in college, and I saw bands come through. To me, that was the music industry. That like the people passing through town. That was the music industry, and I knew a little bit of what working for a promoter was like because I'd had that experience. So I think I was partially looking for a different experience, the road experience. And what's interesting in hindsight is it's what I started out trying to do, and it took me a while to actually end up on the road. In the accounting office, there was really no travel or on-site experience. And then I kind of, met the guy that became my husband, and so then it wasn't really a good time to pursue, a new relationship's not a good time to say, hey, I think I'll now spend 10 months on the road. I kind of put off wanting to do that for a while and wanted to have a job that was a little bit more grounded and at home. But I think that what interested me in it was probably just that I had exposure to it. And I feel like I wasn't aware of a lot of jobs that existed.
Like within the music industry?
Within the music industry or within the world in general. I mean, I think that just to see all of the possibilities of jobs in the music industry, if you're not exposed to that, you kind of don't think about the fact that they exist. And I think a lot of people are just, their minds are blown when they see how many people it takes to run things. And when I point out that there's marketing people and advertising people, there's numbers people, there's the logistics production people, there's any kind of job that you can imagine you can have within this industry. People don't realize. They see the bands on stage and kind of think that's it. A little bit.
It happens so easy.
Like
it looks easy.
It just all happens. And whenever we're staying in hotels and people ask what band is in town, because they assume that the only people on a bus would be a band.
Right.
And I'm like, it's nobody interesting. It's just the production crew.
I feel like when you're working in the music industry, you forget what it's like just to be like a fan and you
Yes.
have no idea that
Yeah.
because you're just as a fan like if you're not interested in the music industry you don't think about
don't
like
think
who's
about
behind there
right.
like
And so before
Yeah.
I saw the tours come through town, and before I kind of stumbled across the concert committee, it would never have occurred to me that this job that I have now existed. You know.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was young, like, people are so kind of egocentric in how they're thinking about things. I assumed any concert I wanted to go to was going to be sold out.
I did the same thing.
Because if
Yeah.
I'm going to go, everybody wants to go,
yeah.
you know? And so then when I started booking shows and then seeing, like, oh, concerts don't all sell out, I remember that being a funny moment of, like, oh, I guess that not everybody, you know, like, is in the same thing ever.
I used to be the same way. It was like the second the tickets went on sale,
Yeah.
I had to get it. And I probably drove my mom crazy about that. Okay, so how long have you been on tour now? Like, are you touring full time?
Well, I'm more of a full-time mom, actually, so I'm at home 10 months out of the year at the moment. The work tour is, this is my 4th year on this tour, and I started touring, like the first tour that I was on a tour bus was in 2004, so I guess I've been touring for about 8 years. The work tour is easy to plan around, because it happens at the same time every year. When you have a 3-year-old at home, it's like, it's good. It's nice to know that it's going to happen and when it's going to happen. I'm currently pregnant with the second one, so yeah, this baby was totally scheduled around the Warped Tour.
Nice, that's so fun.
So he will be born in October, and then he'll be as old as possible when I go on the road next year. So I was aiming to not miss a tour by having an infant.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the many reasons that I love this tour, is that it fits into the bigger picture of my, you know, life now of having kids and being a mom. But I wouldn't mind, you know, if it's convenient with my life, picking up another tour in the summer. So I don't really, or in the winter, I mean. So I don't really tour year round, and I don't really intend to, because right now in my life, my career, this is just kind of a good fit for what works for me.
So when you're home, are you still in Chicago? So when you're home in Chicago, do you work at like a venue doing accounting?
Nope.
No,
I
you just chill?
go to music class with the kids and go to the park. And,
That's awesome.
And I'll tell you what, it's far more exhausting than what I do out here on the Warped Tour. But it's a good time, and it's, you know, it's, I miss them when I'm gone, but I also come home refreshed and excited about doing things that are interesting to a 2-year-old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So what is it like for you being in a different office?
Oh, it's the best.
At first, was it like kind of crazy, but now you're like used to it, or like?
I do not know how my husband goes to the same cubicle in the same building on the same floor for like 12 years in a row. It would like doesn't work. I love being in a different place every day.
Yeah.
It's nice working with different people every day. It's also nice traveling with people that I enjoy working with. But yeah, just a different surrounding is for me is much more interesting than if I was in the same place every day.
Right.
I like
That's
it.
pretty cool.
By the end of the tour, I'm a little sick of like packing up and unpacking the desk.
Okay.
Where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna put this printer away again, but that's the only slight annoyance. The rest of it, it's like, it's kind of fun to be somewhere different and try and help me.
And if you're like a logical person, then it's like, there's your chance to like, you gotta like fit
and
everything
I love
in place again.
Like my hobby is interior design and decor,
perfect.
so every day I'm like, how are we gonna arrange this room?
Yeah, awesome. So do you, like, what's your process like in the morning, like for a day on Warped Tour? What time do you like wake up, and then how do you set up? And find
this year, the very first thing that I do in the morning is get the current sold number, the current number of sold tickets. I need to get to the box office and get that number to Kevin so he can kind of know where we're at. So I set my alarm for 8, and hopefully, if things are going smoothly, that number is in my email when I wake up. So the very first thing I do is check my email, how many tickets have we sold, and tell Kevin.
Lucky bucket.
Then, hi.
How we doing?
We're good. I'm getting interviewed.
No, it's fine.
You can say hi.
Yeah, do you wanna?
Hi there.
I want to be paid, please.
Can we pause for a moment? Is that okay?
Yeah,
Oh,
With getting the ticket
Are they a wait of people at each venue to give you that number? Or is that like
Yes.
the night before they email you?
Well, I want a count at the end of the day the night before, and so I email them, around 5 o'clock and say send me a current count, and I'll also be looking for one at 8 a.m. So if people are on their game, then they just send it to me. Otherwise, I have to track it down. Now, there's somebody at the venue that should be able to get it because, we're loading the show.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the box office manager might not be there, but most box office managers have the ability to check ticket counts from their home.
Okay. They have the programs on their computer.
Yeah. So I haven't had too much of a problem this year getting that. So then I really try to not be at my desk too much before noon because from noon to 6 is my transacting hours where all of the bands come to get paid or people are dropping off cash or I'm really just kind of tied to my desk. So before noon I need to make sure that the box office gets open with tickets on sale for the right price and that they're well equipped to handle our unique ticket flow of people. We tend to have a lot of walk-up. We have a lot of people that are going to concerts for the first time, so I just kind of check in with the box office and make sure that they're prepared for what their morning is going to be like. And then, and that's usually around 9 or 10, depending on what time they open. And they, when the doors are open, if there's a line at the box office, but there's music on inside, we really want to get people in as soon as possible because we don't announce our schedule in advance, so we want them they don't know what time their favorite band's playing.
Yeah.
So Kevin is usually pretty active up front also, and if there's a box office line, we do whatever we can to eliminate that, whether that's doing will call or selling tickets for cash out on the line. We are frequently, we are sometimes out there doing something physical in front of the box office to help get people in. So that sometimes takes up a good chunk of my morning. Then I transact from noon till 6, and then at 6 I kind of switch over into settlement mode. The box office usually closes at 6, and I can't settle the show before the box office is closed because we wouldn't know how many tickets we've sold for the day. So when the box office closes, then I can kind of settle the show, get a check, and video chat with my family and whatnot.
Got it. So in the period of from 12 to 6, when bands are coming in and out, do you see every band every day?
No. So there are, I don't know how many bands we have. There's 98 bands on my sheet, and I would say we probably have 60 or 70 bands a day. Bands get paid once a week by check, and if they want to pick up cash, they can, and then just the difference goes in the check. So most bands get paid by check or by wire, in which case I don't see them at all. There are, I would say, between 10 and 20 bands that pick up cash either every day or once a week. So I kind of get to know the same people that flow through my office. Like this guy, David Tomorrow's Bad Seeds. He's here to get paid.
We can enter.
Alright.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep doing your thing. So you just have people coming in and getting their cash.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Today, I have extra people because while it's not the end of the pay week, I ask the people that come get paid weekly to get paid before we go into Canada, just to help manage my cash flow. So I have more people stopping by today.
When you go into Canada, do you think it's getting crazy in the accounting office?
Well, I don't know that it's crazy. It just is a little bit more complicated because you have two currencies, and if we were just there for one day, it would be easy because the money that you receive, like the Canadian cash that I receive, would be at the same rate as any Canadian cash I get back, but there would only be one exchange rate. When we are there for multiple days, there's an exchange rate for each day. So like I will get some Canadian cash tomorrow and then turn it back in the next day, but those would be at different rates. So then I have to figure how to make that all US. So there's just a little bit more figuring out. which is fine, but
Yeah.
you know, but like the bands, and I'm dealing with two different currencies at the same time, because the bands will come get paid and they get paid in U.S., but there's other things that I pay in Canadian, and the show is settled sort of in Canadian and sort of in U.S.
Yeah. You just have to go through everything carefully.
Yes, yes. And there's and then anytime you're saying a number, you have to clarify if you're talking about U.S. or Canadian.
Okay, got it.
Because it is
confusing.
confusing.
Was there ever a time during, I guess, this job or even any job where the numbers got really out of place and you were kind of in a pickle and you had to sort of like figure out where you made an error?
I frequently have to figure out where I made an error.
Okay.
That is, I would say, a regular occurrence. And it's usually, that usually is when I'm balancing my cash, finding the typo is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So if I'm off on my cash, it's usually a round number, and it's usually like I just typed something in wrong, but then I've got to go figure out what I typed in wrong,
Yeah.
or maybe I counted the bundles of money wrong, and so it's just rechecking my work is something that I do frequently, but it always gets found, right?
Yeah.
In settlement, the entire settlement is looking for wrong numbers, because you've got another person that you're trying to balance your spreadsheets to end up with the same amount of the check that they're going to write. And to get to that number, they're giving me the information, but I'm putting it in my computer, and there's frequently, we put this on a different line, called it a different expense name, or grabbed the wrong number off of a sheet. So we're frequently reading through lists of numbers to see where we're off between us, so that we can balance.
Got it. It seems like it takes a lot of patience.
Yeah, yeah. I certainly have a job that is not for the impatient. It's a lot of tedious, detailed work. Yes.
I'll check.
And the less chaos that is around me.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like you're in like the craziest place possible, and you just have to kind of like sit down,
it's a
go
combination
through
of
things.
trying to get a quiet office, which Carrie and I always share an office, and we usually try to be a little bit removed from production just so there's less chaos around. But I also am able to tune out things that don't matter a little bit. If there's conversations nearby, I try to be able to tune those out if I'm, and just focus on what I'm doing.
I think that's it. Thank you so much.
You're so
for answering all
welcome.
our questions.
I hope that was a little bit interesting.
Yeah, it was. It's cool. It's interesting to know for sure.